Some places do not appear on maps, they appear when the heart is ready. Hidden just beyond the ordinary world, the Enchanted Tea Room welcomes those who arrive carrying grief, a longing, unanswered questions, or a quiet ache they cannot name. Its door opens not by chance, but by need. Within its warm stone walls, time slows. Teacups are poured with care. Flowers seem to listen. Stories unfold gently, one visitor at a time, each revealing moments of loss, hope, healing, and unexpected grace. No one is rushed, no one is judged, and no one leaves quite the same as when they arrived. The bell that rang twice. In the spring of 1862, in a small countryside town edged with wild roses and wide meadows, twin girls were born beneath a sky streaked pink and gold. Their names were Clara and Lydia. They were identical in face, but not in spirit. Clara was steady as oak wood, gentle, thoughtful, happiest with her hands in soil or flower. Lydia was wind and spark, curious, restless, her eyes always searching beyond the hills. From the time they could walk, they were inseparable. They braided each other's hair. They whispered secrets beneath the quilts. They walked barefoot down dusty lanes, holding hands. They finished one another's sentences. The townspeople used to say, "If you see one, the other is not far behind." But on their 18th birthday, everything changed. The railroad had finally come through their town. The city was growing. Factories were hiring. The newspapers spoke of opportunity and independence. Lydia felt it in her bones. "I was not made only for this town," she said one evening, standing at the edge of the meadow as twilight pressed in. Clara felt the words like a quiet bruise. "You are my other half," she whispered. "And you are mine," Lydia replied. "But perhaps halves are meant to stretch." 3 weeks later, Lydia boarded the train. Clara stood on the platform as steam swallowed her sister whole. Letters came at first, then fewer, then none. Years folded into decades. Clara married a quiet farmer, but buried him way too young. She kept the family cottage. She tended roses Lydia had once planted. And every birthday she baked 2 small cakes. One she ate, and one she set at the empty place across the table. And she always wondered. On the morning of their 40th birthday, Clara woke before dawn with a strange stillness in her chest. Not sorrow, not joy, a pulling, like a thread tied behind her heart. She rose, wrapped herself in her shawl, and stepped outside. The air shimmered faintly with something she could not explain. The old oak tree at the edge of her property seemed different. There, where no building had stood the day before, was a small cottage with a wooden sign that read, "The Enchanted Tea Room." A soft bell hung beside the door. Clara stood very still, and then she rang it. The sound was not loud, but it echoed in her bones. Inside, warm lamplight glowed. Catherine, the tea room host, felt it before she heard it, the deep twin ringing of a soul long divided. She lifted the kettle with calm certainty. 2 cups, she murmured softly. The door opened. Clara stepped inside, breath trembling. The air smelled of rose and chamomile, of lavender and memory, of something sacred and old. And there, across the room, standing just inside the doorway on the opposite wall, was Lydia. Older, changed, lines at her eyes, gray threaded through her hair, but unmistakable. They stared at one another, and neither moved. Lydia had woken that morning in a boarding house in the city. She had never married. She had worked in textile mills, then as a seamstress. She had known hunger, ambition, pride, and regret. She had meant to write. She had meant to return, but shame is a quiet jailer. And then that morning, she had felt that same pull, a doorway that had not existed, a bell that called her by name, a whisper that said, "Come home." It was Clara who moved first, one step, then another. Lydia began to weep before Clara even reached her. "I thought you forgot me," Clara whispered. "I never forgot," Lydia choked. "I forgot how to come back." They folded into one another like no time had passed, like they were 18, like they were 8, like they were newborn beneath a pink spring sky. Catherine quietly set 2 teacups before them, delicate porcelain with climbing rose patterns, and steam rose gently. "This blend," she said softly, "is called Restoration." Neither sister asked how she knew. They sat, they spoke, at first haltingly, then with laughter, then with tears that felt like rain after drought. 20 years of silence dissolved into forgiveness. Clara told Lydia about the roses. Lydia told Clara about the city lights. Clara spoke of loss. Lydia spoke of loneliness. And somewhere between the first sip and the last, something invisible knit itself whole. They weren't just drinking tea, they were remembering who they had always been together. When they stepped back outside, the cottage was gone. Only the old oak tree remained. But Clara's hand was no longer empty, and Lydia did not board a train again. She came home. There was peace in their presence, no more aching, just a quiet gratitude. They had made it back to each other again. They spent the rest of their days in the cottage Clara had kept warm for both of them, and every birthday after that they baked 2 cakes, and this time they both ate. The oak tree stood steady in the field, and where the enchanted tea room had stood was a warm glow, as if it never truly disappeared. If this story brought you a moment of peace, you're always welcome to come back. Share this video with a friend that needs a moment of peace also. You can like and subscribe so the tea room finds you again, and the Enchanted Tea Room will meet you again here for the next story. Until next time, the kettle will be warm and the table will be waiting.